The Terminids of Helldivers 2 are often dismissed by many members of the community. They are often treated as simple, unorganized animals, waiting passively for some rookie Helldiver to come wipe them out, able to be ignored in favor of the far more pressing threat that is the automatons. After all, they're just bugs, right? Well, in today's College of Lore, we'll be covering just how wrong that is, and how the Terminids are anything but just bugs. The Terminids are a complex group of insectoid aliens that function in a cooperative caste system. They're divided into a number of individual types based on their role within the hive. And that brings us to another point. There are some people who believe that the Terminids possess a kind of hive mind, an intelligence that coordinates their activities and makes their conquest of planets and biomes easier. But as far as we can tell, that idea is wrong. For the most part. I mean, Terminids do possess a hive mind, but it functions in much the same way as hive intelligences do here on Earth, by collective instincts and signals. The Terminids are not linked psychically, with some form of brain bug coordinating their eternal war on all non-bug life forms. Instead, they simply possess a highly developed and highly detailed set of instincts that governs their behavior based on a set of received signals. The most common form that takes is pheromones, like we see whenever a scavenger signals its fellow little monsters for a bug breach. These pheromone signals are likely how most bugs coordinate all of their activities, but for all we know, there could be other, far faster signaling methods available to them as well. There is strong evidence for this, in that changes in bug evolution seem to spread instantly across galactic distances despite no physical connection existing between affected planets. And that sort of thing would require some form of superluminal communication between the bug hives. I do have a theory on that point, but it's not ready right now. And unless the Ministry of Truth chooses to release more information in the near future, speculation is all we're going to have for the time being. Still, intelligent or not, the Nids are extremely well organized. Like any hive species, they have many specialized roles and many specialized castes for working those roles. Those we have encountered include scavengers, warriors, hive guardians, brood commanders, hunters, stalkers, shriekers, bile spewers, chargers, and bile titans. These bugs range greatly in size and armor, and provide the Terminid hives as a whole the ability to deal with nearly any kind of situation, short of orbital bombardment. And that leaves an interesting question. If the bugs have no orbit-capable or even anti-air type weaponry, how are they a threat to the forces of Super Earth? Surely they can just be nuked from orbit until there's nothing left. And in a way that's true, but Terminids are masters of tunneling, and their hives often extend deep below the ground, where even medium-sized orbital weaponry struggles to reach them. In fact, only the heaviest orbital strike weapons can guarantee a kill on a Terminid hive complex, and even then it often takes more than one hit per hive. And given how many Terminid hives are present on your average bug-infested world, pure orbital bombardment is simply too expensive to be an effective response. Thus, Helldivers are necessary. It's not as though Terminids are undefeatable though, and Super Earth has on more than one occasion successfully contained them and eliminated their infestations, but each time they stopped short of actually exterminating the creepy crawlies, and that's due to another interesting aspect of Terminid biology. They are a tremendous source of energy. Due to a quirk of their extreme evolution, the Terminids' armored bodies are full of a very energy-dense hydrocarbon compound, element 710. Super Earth science teams discovered this early on in the First Galactic War, and thus the insect menace was spared ultimate annihilation in favor of Super Earth work teams farming them in controlled breeding camps as a means of generating element 710. Unfortunately, the bugs are incredibly difficult to contain, and even a small containment breach typically leads to the affected planet being entirely swarmed and conquered by the bugs almost overnight. This is likely a result of how the bugs naturally spread, as their unique method of planetary colonization gives them great advantages when it comes to breaking containment. Now, I should preface this by saying exactly how the bugs spread from planet to planet is technically unclear at this time. However, there are theories. We know the Terminids occupied many planets before coming into contact with Super Earth, and unless there was another spacefaring galactic power that transplanted them onto all of those planets and then up and disappeared, we have to assume the bugs spread on their own. And since they have no spaceflight capability, they must have an alternate method of crossing interstellar distances. And the idea that makes the most sense to me is that they spread through spores. The reasons I say this are complicated. For one, the Terminids themselves are not the only species that is present on all Terminid-controlled worlds. they are also always joined by some form of mushroom, whether it be the enormous spore spewers, the nesting shrooms of the deadly shriekers, or even just the small orb-like stalk shrooms that we collect as common samples. There are always mushrooms. And since the odds of two unrelated species somehow managing to spread themselves across galactic distances without space travel and at the same time and to the same planets as each other is so infinitesimally small as to not be worth considering. So we must conclude these species are linked. The most obvious explanation is that the bugs somehow farm these mushrooms as a food source, somewhat like the leafcutter ants here on Earth. And while I think that's true, I think the connection goes far deeper than that. I think the bugs and the mushrooms are actually the same species, with each simply representing a different part of the Terminid's very complicated and very elaborate genome. After all, the bugs are the most evolutionarily advanced race in the Helldivers galaxy, and it's not too hard to believe that such an evolution could create symbiotic species so intertwined as to become one single genetic template, with only circumstance determining how that template expresses itself. So my theory is that the massive spore shrooms that so inconvenience humanity's finest when beating back the Terminid menace are not just smokescreen generators. They are in fact the bug's primary method of dispersal, with spores drifting through space until they find a suitable planet, where at first strange mushrooms will grow, then strange insects begin to appear, seemingly crawling out of the mushrooms themselves, and then they will grow larger and larger until finally becoming the enormous monsters that we all know and hate. As for how the spores reach space in the first place, I can think of two ways. The first is by natural phenomenon, like asteroid strikes or supervolcanic eruptions. After all, the bugs do like heat in their nests, so it's not strange to think they'd choose to create huge hives right on top of massive volcanoes. And once that volcano erupts, spores are launched into space, where they can drift for millions of years before finding another planet to colonize. But that's the slow way. There is another, far more dangerous method the bugs might spread. Every time a Helldiver is extracted, every time civilians are rescued, a shuttle has to land. And when it takes off again, a few spores might just stick to the hull. Hell, since the spores are airborne, a ship need not even land. Simply entering the atmosphere of a bug-infested world might be enough for spores to attach themselves to a ship. And if that ship then travels to another planet, say to fight an automated menace, the spores can be transferred to that new planet, where they can begin to transform it into yet another bug world. Who knows if this happened before? Perhaps the Illuminate, during their thousands of years of space travel, accidentally spread the Terminids to dozens of worlds before realizing their mistake. Perhaps there was an entirely unknown alien race, capable of spaceflight, who were completely consumed by the Terminid menace, leaving no trace of themselves for us to find. In any case, if my theory is correct, then humanity needs to be damn careful, because who knows how much damage has already been done, and how many worlds have already been infected, how many lives are now in danger. After all, the Terminids are the pinnacle of evolutionary achievement, and they didn't get there by playing nice. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of College of Lore, and if you want to see us cover more Helldivers topics, be sure to leave a like and comment down below. And if you want to warn the galaxy of the Terminid threat, be sure to share this video with everyone you know. The only way for us to win is for this video to spread faster than the Terminid virus ever could. So do your patriotic duty and share. And until we meet again, I have been Austin. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.